Okay, so think about this. We live in a world that's just constantly pushing us, right, towards the next big thing, the quick win, the flashy title,
Hmm.
this endless need for external validation. But what does true, lasting achievement actually, look like?
It's a huge goal, and we chase recognition. We try to accumulate stuff, climb the corporate ladder.
Yeah, all those external markers.
Exactly. But are we really building something that genuinely matters? Something that can't just be stripped away from us?
It forces you to look past the surface, doesn't it? Beyond those superficial signs of success.
Totally. We get bombarded daily with these images of what making it looks like, but so often, even if you get there, it can feel, well, fleeting,
Yeah.
maybe even a bit hollow.
Absolutely. And that's precisely why today we're doing a deep dive into something that I think cuts through all that noise. It's a concept that offers a fundamentally different path, maybe a more resilient one, to real accomplishment. We're talking about mastery.
Mastery as the ultimate form of achievement, not the temporary stuff, not the easily acquired stuff.
Exactly. We're talking about the unshakable.
And our mission here in this deep dive is really to unpack why mastery holds this unique, almost defiant kind of value. To do that, we're pulling from a really rich mix of wisdom. We've got insights from modern thinkers like Derek Sivers, Ryan Holiday,
Mm.
management gurus like Peter Drucker, and we're even going back to, the Stoics, Marcus
And
Aurelius.
not just them, right? We're also bringing in timeless figures, people whose lives just embody this deep wisdom, like Aesop, Gandhi, the Dalai Lama.
It's a pretty diverse lineup.
It really is. But what's amazing is how they all seem to converge on something incredibly powerful. And kind of at the heart of it all, acting as our guidepost, is this statement from Derek Sivers. It really sets the stage. He said, "Mastery is the best goal because the rich can't buy it, the impatient can't rush it, the privileged can't inherit it, and nobody can steal it. You can only earn it through hard work. Mastery is the ultimate status."
Wow. Yeah, that quote really hits hard. What's so compelling there is how it just immediately lifts mastery beyond the usual ways we measure success. It frames it as something fundamentally internal, robust,
Mhm.
unassailable. It challenges our whole societal idea of what's truly valuable.
So what does this mean for you, listening right now? Well, by the end of this deep dive, our aim is for you to have a much clearer grasp of what real mastery involves, why it's so uniquely valuable, whether that's in your job, a hobby, your relationships, even just your own well-being.
And crucially, how you can actually start cultivating it in your own life, on your own terms.
Yeah. Get ready to maybe rethink what it truly means to achieve something significant.
Yeah.
Okay, let's really dive into that foundational claim from Derek Sivers. Mastery is the ultimate status, specifically because of those four qualities. It feels pretty radical in a world obsessed with, buying the next best thing.
It really is. The rich can't buy it,
The impatient can't rush it,
the privileged can't inherit it.
and nobody can steal it. That just reframes everything, doesn't it?
It forces us to reconsider what genuine value actually is, what enduring achievement looks like. In a world where almost everything feels like it can be bought, where we want everything now and where advantages often seem passed down, Severs points out that the deepest, most secure achievements are internal. They have to be earned.
Which really makes you wonder, why do we spend so much time
Hmm.
chasing lesser, more fragile forms of status?
That's the big question, isn't it? When this ultimate status is, theoretically at least, within reach for anyone willing to put in the work.
It's that paradox. We
Yeah.
love the idea of the outcome, the final product, but maybe we undervalue the grind, the
Right.
slow, sometimes painful process.
Hmm.
So let's tackle that first barrier he mentions. The wealthy cannot purchase mastery. We often think, throw enough money at something and you can buy your way there, but it seems clear that just doesn't work with true mastery.
No, it doesn't. Think about learning a musical instrument, like really mastering it. What's fascinating is the clear line between buying resources and actually building internal skill. So someone with a lot of money could absolutely buy the most incredible violin, a Stradivarius.
Right. The best of the best.
Hire the top teacher from Juilliard for private lessons, build a perfect soundproof practice room.
All the external advantages.
Huge advantages, an optimal learning environment, no question.
Right.
But the actual neural pathways that let someone play effortlessly, lightning fast, the muscle memory that makes complex techniques feel like second nature.
That gut feeling for the music.
Exactly. That deep, intuitive understanding that allows for real expression, putting your soul into it. None of that is for sale. It has to be grown, nurtured, built organically through, Well, thousands of hours of deliberate, sometimes really frustrating
It's
practice.
like an internal biological thing, not just buying a product.
Precisely. It's a transformation inside the person.
And this isn't just for music, right? The sources really push this into the business world too, which feels incredibly relevant for so many people listening.
Absolutely. In business, you see it all the time. People with vast wealth can buy entire companies,
Sure. Hire top talent.
get access to exclusive networks, all things others can't easily get. Yet, even with all that, they often struggle. They struggle to develop that fundamental judgment,
Yeah.
that knack for making nuanced decisions when things are uncertain.
The real leadership skills.
Yeah, the authentic, empathetic leadership that defines true business mastery. That kind of mastery isn't about the assets you control, the people on your payroll. It's about the internal growth that comes only from, well, direct, often difficult experience.
Learning from mistakes, reflecting.
Right. Reflecting deeply on successes and failures. It's forged in the fire of real-world challenges. Organizations might pour millions into quick fixes, buying other companies, but they often overlook the long game, developing their people's actual judgment.
So no amount of cash can buy that hard-won wisdom. The kind you get from navigating tough times, making hard calls, leading people through real messes. It's a strong counter-narrative, isn't it?
Yeah.
To that societal temptation to just shortcut everything with money or to think wealth automatically equals wisdom.
It really is. It forces us to face the fact that while money can open doors and remove obstacles, it just cannot bypass the biological, psychological, and experiential requirements for deep skill. It's a reminder that the most valuable things, maybe they really are beyond the reach of a checkbook, real capability is forged, not bought.
Okay, that perfectly sets up the second barrier. The impatient cannot rush mastery. This one, this one really hits hard in our culture, doesn't it? We expect instant results for everything. Coffee, careers, you name it.
We're always looking for the hack, the shortcut.
The overnight success story.
And mastery just fundamentally requires patience, deep patience, a quality that feels like it's in pretty short supply these days. Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule became so popular partly because it put a number on something we intuitively know.
Yeah.
Significant skill takes a lot of sustained, deliberate time.
Right, you can't just compress it like a zip file.
No, it's organic. It needs time to grow.
It's that crucial difference between, say, just memorizing facts for a test versus truly understanding something so deeply you can apply it intuitively, effortlessly, even when things change. The sources use a great example. Clinical judgment in medicine.
Yes, that's a perfect illustration. A medical student, right, they have to memorize enormous amounts of information very quickly. Anatomy, drugs, diseases.
Just sheer volume.
But that subtle pattern recognition, the thing that lets an experienced doctor diagnose a really complex, tricky case with maybe just a few clues.
That instinct for what question to ask next.
Or knowing which seemingly unrelated symptom might be the key. That only develops through seeing patient after patient year after year. Repeated, varied exposure.
It's like building roads in the brain.
Kind of, yeah. Like building neural highways. The more you use a specific pathway, the clearer and more efficient it gets. Each patient, each tough case, carves those connections deeper. Eventually, for the master, that diagnostic process feels almost automatic. It's biological. You can't just, airlift a finished highway into place. It needs traffic, time, varied experience.
So even with better tools, faster information access, maybe simulations, none of that eliminates the fundamental time needed for deep learning, for that embodied wisdom.
Right. Technology can help, it can make things more efficient, but it can't replace the time needed for the brain and body to truly assimilate and master complex skills.
It really shows how our cultural obsession with now clashes with the basic reality of how humans learn deep skills.
It does, and it makes you question how we design learning, how we set career expectations. Are we creating systems that are fundamentally at odds with how people actually develop profound capability? The impatient way often just leads to a surface-level competence, like a thin veneer of knowledge, rather than that deep, solid foundation of mastery built over time.
Okay, then the third barrier. The privileged cannot inherit mastery. This one's fascinating because we usually link privilege with an easier path, maybe even a guaranteed one.
Yeah, and this is maybe the most sort of democratizing aspect of mastery. It resists being simply handed down. Now, obviously, kids of accomplished parents often get huge advantages, right? Early exposure, better education, networks, cultural capital.
Sure, head starts.
Absolutely. But paradoxically, those very advantages can sometimes become real roadblocks to developing mastery themselves.
Hmm.
If those benefits lead to a sense of entitlement, or if they feel like a substitute for putting in the actual personal effort, the struggle, they can actually hinder the internal growth mastery demands.
It's like getting the blueprints for a cathedral, but never actually learning how to lay the stones, mix the mortar, solve the structural problems that inevitably crop up during construction.
That's a great analogy. The sources use the example of children of successful entrepreneurs. Many of them, even inheriting a business, capital, a network, they really struggle to develop their own business mastery.
They have the outcome, but not the process.
Exactly. They inherit the thriving company, the money, but they haven't been through the crucible, the process that created it. They haven't faced that terrifying uncertainty of a startup, bounced back from failures, worried about making payroll.
Develop that resilience.
That resilience, it only comes from building something from scratch, dealing with setbacks, earning every single step. That hard-won wisdom, you just can't transfer it in a will.
That's a powerful, maybe counterintuitive point.
Yeah.
That external advantages, things that look like a huge help, can sometimes accidentally get in the way of the internal stuff, the grind, the failing, the figuring it out that's absolutely essential for real mastery.
It makes you realize some of the best lessons, the deepest wisdom often comes from adversity, not from having it easy.
Yeah.
And it pushes us to think, how can society structure opportunities to genuinely foster that internal development, that capability building, instead of just reinforcing external advantages? Real capability, true wisdom. It's earned, not inherited.
And this brings us to the last point, which feels incredibly liberating. Nobody can steal mastery. This feels like it fundamentally changes how we think about true wealth, doesn't it? Its immunity to theft really highlights how internal and secure it is.
This is maybe the most profound part. It underscores the ultimate security and lasting value of mastery. Think about it. External things, your car, house, money, gadgets, even relationships or reputation, they can all be lost, damaged, taken away.
They're vulnerable.
But the capabilities, the wisdom, the actual neural patterns and ingrained skills that make up mastery, they are literally embedded within you, part of who you are.
Inseparable.
Exactly. That inherent security is maybe the deepest form of wealth because it's immune to external circumstance.
And the sources use such a powerful, almost heartbreaking example with Viktor Frankl in the concentration camps. It's extreme, but it drives the point home incredibly forcefully.
It really does. Frankl, a psychiatrist, a Holocaust survivor. He lost everything external, his family, possessions, career, freedom, even his physical health, pushed to the absolute limit.
Unimaginable loss.
Yet despite all that, he held on to his psychological and philosophical mastery. His unique ability to find meaning even in that horrific suffering. His capacity to help others find hope in those same unbearable conditions.
That couldn't be taken.
It couldn't be confiscated. It existed as part of his developed character, his internal understanding, his very being. It wasn't an external thing that could be seized. It's just this enduring testament to the unassailable nature of internally developed skill and knowledge.
That's incredibly moving. And it makes you think, what does this immunity really tell us about the true, lasting value of what we build inside ourselves? It's like a resource that can never run out, a power that can't be disarmed.
Indeed. It strongly suggests that the most valuable things we can cultivate are internal, not subject to the whims of fortune or misfortune. It really shifts the focus from accumulating external stuff to cultivating internal capabilities as the real foundation for security and fulfillment.
So reflecting on these four barriers, can't buy it, can't rush it, can't inherit it, can't steal it. It makes me curious for you, listening. What shortcuts have you seen people try, or maybe even been tempted by yourself, that just didn't deliver real capability or lasting satisfaction in the end? And how does really understanding mastery this way, as something so internal, so earned, start to maybe reframe your own goals, what you genuinely value? Okay, so we've spent a good chunk of time really dissecting mastery on the individual level, its tough demands, its unshakable nature. But what happens when we zoom out? How can these principles transform not just one person, but an entire organization, its culture, its effectiveness? For that, we need to look at Peter Drucker's ideas, his vision of self-governing communities.
Oh, Drucker's work here is just fascinating and honestly probably still ahead of its time for a lot of places today. He wasn't just talking about, basic delegation or making people feel empowered. He envisioned self-governing plant communities,
Hmm.
places where employees at every level, the individual worker, the team, the whole employee group would actually take on significant managerial responsibility, collectively, enthusiastically.
So this isn't just about deciding your own break times. It's serious core managerial stuff that usually sits much higher up the chain. The sources list out some very specific areas Drucker thought employees could handle.
Yeah, he got really detailed. He laid out this comprehensive list, things like structuring the individual job itself, handling major operational tasks, managing critical community affairs,
Oh boy.
things like shift schedules, vacation planning, overtime assignments, industrial safety, even significantly managing employee benefits.
Yeah.
This wasn't just about following orders better or having input. It was about genuine autonomy, real ownership of their operational world, moving from just doing your job to truly leading within your sphere.
Okay, but here's the twist, right? Despite the obvious potential benefits, more engagement, faster problem solving, real innovation, maybe Drucker saw this deep, stubborn resistance from both sides. Why? What was the fear?
That's a great question about human nature and power dynamics, isn't it? Drucker pointed out that management often saw it as losing control and encroachment on their authority, a threat to their role in the hierarchy.
Okay, understandable from their view. What about the unions?
Well, he said labor unions were often outright hostile. They felt they needed a clear boss figure, someone identifiable to push against the enemy. Their whole structure, their power, was often based on that adversarial relationship. Self-governance kind of blurred those lines.
So in a strange way, both sides kind of preferred the familiar fight, even if it was frustrating.
That seems to be the analysis. Both sides clung to the familiar power structures, that kind of comfortable dependence, rather than embracing the challenge of autonomy. Management had clear authority, unions had a clear target. Self-governance would make things more collaborative, but also more ambiguous, more demanding for everyone. It was a leap into the unknown, needing new trust, new responsibilities.
But Drucker didn't just leave it as theory. He pointed to history, showing it was possible. He mentioned World War II specifically.
Yes, a crucial point. He highlighted that what was achieved in these areas in World War II went way beyond anything that is being trumpeted today as a breakthrough. The sheer pressure of wartime, the existential threat, the urgent need for speed and innovation, it seemed to just override the usual resistance. It forced organizations and people to be more adaptable, more responsible, more innovative, just to survive and meet critical goals. It suggests that under the right pressure, people are capable of way more autonomy than usual structures allow. Necessity drove invention.
And he also used IBM as a more modern example, which is interesting because IBM wasn't known for being particularly loose or permissive. Quite the opposite, usually.
That's a really important detail. He specifically cited IBM, noting how factory floor work teams have assumed routinely significant responsibility, even though it was hardly a particularly permissive company. This example is key because it debunks the idea that self-governance or organizational mastery is just about being lenient or hands-off. Instead, it's about building deep capability within the workforce so they can meet high standards autonomously. It's empowering people through developing their skills and judgment, not through a lack of control. Rigor and autonomy can actually work together.
So it's not about being soft. It's about being smart, investing in your people for the long haul. Which brings us to Drucker's main action point for making this work.
Yes, his core requirement is fundamental. You need to delegate responsibility to all employees once you are assured they have been trained to assume this responsibility. That's huge. It implies a deep, often overlooked organizational investment. It means developing mastery throughout the entire workforce, not just hoarding expertise at the top. It reinforces the idea that, just like individual mastery, you can't just impose organizational mastery with a new policy or org chart.
Right.
It has to be cultivated, developed systematically through capability building, targeted training, and a gradual, intentional handover of responsibility. It's growing it, not mandating it.
This isn't just empowerment as a buzzword. It's a deep structural commitment to growing competence, judgment, responsibility at every level. So for you listening, thinking about Drucker's vision, where do you see the most resistance to real employee responsibility in your own workplace? Is it from management? From employees? Both. And more practically, if you wanted to create a small self-governing island in your current role or team, what's one concrete step you could take only this week to start building that collective ownership and responsibility? I'm shifting gears slightly. We've looked at individual mastery, organizational mastery. Now let's dive into the psychology. Why do we humans often take what Marcus Aurelius called the long way around to get things that might be right in front of us. This insight, which Ryan Holiday interprets so well, gets right to the heart of a really curious human habit.
It's a profound Stoic observation, really cuts deep. Marcus Aurelius said, "You can enjoy this very moment all the things you were praying to reach by taking the long way around if you'd stop depriving yourself of them." The implication is stunning. The things we're striving for, freedom, happiness, respect, might actually be available now, but we somehow complicate the path, pushing them away by chasing external proxies.
And Ryan Holiday really shows what this long way around looks like today. It's so relatable. You ask people their big goals, right? And they'll often say external things. Become CEO, make $1 million by 40, get that specific title or appointment. They focus on the external marker.
But the fascinating part, the revealing part, is when Holiday pushes them. Okay, but why do you want that? Or what do you hope it will feel like when you get it? Almost always, the real underlying desires come out. People aren't actually seeking the title or the money for its own sake. What they truly crave are internal states. Freedom, happiness, the respect of their peers. These are feelings, experiences, personal recognitions, not just external achievements. The external goals are just the vehicle they think will get them there.
And Holiday uses that brilliant Rube Goldberg machine metaphor. You know, those crazy, overly complicated contraptions that do something really simple in the most inefficient way possible.
It's such a vivid analogy for this displacement phenomenon, our tendency to chase internal states via these elaborate, indirect external paths. He says we prefer to spend years building a complicated Rube Goldberg machine instead of just reaching out and picking up what we want.
Like frantically searching everywhere for your sunglasses.
Only to realize they were on your head the whole time. The solution was simple, direct, immediate, totally within your control. Yet, we often build this complex apparatus of external striving, convincing ourselves the feeling we want is only available at the very end of that long, complicated process. We overcomplicate it.
We get so caught up in the machine itself, we forget the simple action that solves the problem right now.
And the Stoic perspective here is just so liberating. They'd argue that freedom, happiness, respect, they aren't distant destinations requiring years of struggle or external stuff. They're easy. They're in our choices, accessible, right in front of us.
How so?
Well, from a Stoic view, true freedom isn't having no external limits. It's your internal ability to choose how you respond to any situation. Happiness isn't getting everything you want. It's appreciating what you have and cultivating inner peace. Respect isn't about titles. It's about the integrity and value you demonstrate through your actions. So these states become direct byproducts of our daily choices, our character, our interactions, not external goals way down the road.
And connecting this back to the workplace, back to Drucker's model. This gets really powerful. We often chase promotions or titles thinking that's where the freedom, respect, and satisfaction are.
Right. But the Stoic insight challenges that. It suggests you don't necessarily have to wait for the promotion to experience those core values. In a self-governing team, or really any role where you take ownership, you can experience freedom by making responsible choices within your current scope. You can earn respect by contributing meaningfully, demonstrating competence. You can find happiness and satisfaction in mastering your current role, solving problems, making a real contribution.
So the focus shifts.
Exactly. It shifts from promotion as the only path to the development of mastery within one's current sphere as the immediate, accessible source of those internal rewards.
So instead of building that complicated Rube Goldberg machine to become a manager just to feel free and respected, you could focus on mastering your current job, taking initiative, exercising judgment, and find those qualities right now.
Precisely. It recognizes that the internal states we crave aren't necessarily tied to future titles. They're a result of our present choices and our commitment to doing excellent work right where we are.
It's a radical shift towards internal development, responsibility, immediate contribution, rather than just climbing the ladder.
It really reorients what counts as reward and fulfillment at work.
So for you listening, what are the Rube Goldberg machines you might be building in your own life, chasing something externally that might actually be accessible more directly right now? And how could you maybe reframe your pursuit of freedom or happiness or respect, finding them not in some distant achievement, but in your current choices, actions, and your commitment to mastery today? Okay, building on that idea of reorientation, let's look at some broader philosophies that really support a mastery-focused life. We can start with David McNally's idea about viewing life as continuous education. That really changes how we face challenges, doesn't it?
It really does. McNally says, life is meant to be a never-ending education, and when this is fully appreciated, we are no longer survivors, but adventurous. When you truly adopt that mindset, the whole process of learning, growing, tackling new things, it becomes inherently rewarding, not just a means to an end. The journey itself becomes the point.
And that distinction he makes between survivors and adventurous seems critical.
Yeah.
Survivors always playing defense, yeah, trying to avoid loss, stay safe, protect what they have.
Exactly. And while safety is important, that defensive posture often inhibits the very things mastery requires. Risk-taking, experimentation, sustained effort through discomfort. Their energy goes into maintaining, not pushing boundaries.
Whereas the adventurous approach,
The adventurous approach sees every challenge, every setback, every bit of new information, even failures, as an opportunity to learn, grow, explore deeper. This naturally aligns with pursuing mastery because it makes the hard work intrinsically motivating. Setbacks aren't just obstacles to endure, they become interesting problems to solve, puzzles to figure out.
so it's not just gritting your teeth through the hard parts, but being genuinely curious about them, seeing them as part of learning.
Right, and this continuous learning creates what the sources call a compound effect, like financial compound interest, but for knowledge and skills.
Small gains building exponentially.
Precisely. Accumulated knowledge and skills combine in increasingly valuable ways. And importantly, you develop the meta skill of learning how to learn, which speeds up all future development. This ties back to Seaver's points. Mastery isn't just unbuyable and unstealable, it actually becomes more valuable over time because the master gets better at integrating new learning with their existing expertise. They can adapt faster, synthesize diverse ideas more effectively.
That's a powerful concept. Mastering something makes you better at mastering other things too. Now, let's shift to a really crucial question. Where should we actually direct all this mastery building energy? For this, Brad Johnson has a stark reminder, originally aimed at teachers, but it applies much more broadly.
Yeah, Johnson's quote is incredibly powerful, maybe a little uncomfortable. Teachers, never let family time be shortchanged. If something happened to you, they would replace you fairly quickly at school, but you're irreplaceable at home. Hmm. Oof. That really highlights a tension in modern life, doesn't it? This priority problem between professional achievement and our personal relationships. It subtly suggests our culture might be pushing us to pour our best energy into areas where we are ultimately replaceable, while maybe neglecting where our value is truly unique.
That's a tough pill to swallow. The idea that no matter how crucial your job feels, the system is designed to replace you eventually. It has to be, for continuity.
It does. Professional roles, however complex or impactful, exist within larger systems built for redundancy. Organizations invest in processes, documentation, training, succession planning, all to ensure the work goes on when individuals leave. Your contribution might be huge, valued, hard to replace quickly, but the role itself, functionally, is replaceable given time and resources.
But at home, with family, totally different ballgame. Replaceability doesn't really compute there.
Not in the same way at all. Personal relationships, especially deep family ones, operate differently. That specific, intricate mix of shared history, inside jokes, comfort rituals, the emotional bonds, that deep intuitive understanding of each other.
That unique dynamic.
That unique dynamic defines your role as a parent, spouse, sibling, child. No one else can step into that. It's profound, irreplaceable value.
So the implication for where we focus our mastery efforts is huge. Maybe we should be weighting our energy towards these irreplaceable areas. Yet, culture often pushes the other way.
That's the critical thinking piece. Culture rewards professional advancement, promotions, money, recognition. Meanwhile, the skills for building strong, loving families are often just assumed to happen naturally, without intentional effort or study. The mastery framework challenges this. It suggests approaching parenting, marriage, family leadership as crafts, worthy of the same seriousness, study, practice, refinement we apply to our jobs. These areas, the sources argue, offer mastery development that's potentially more meaningful, more secure, and yields dividends that last far beyond any job title.
It really forces a reevaluation of what success truly means, beyond just the professional realm. And speaking of redefining success on a grand scale, let's bring in the Dalai Lama's observation about what the world actually needs.
The Dalai Lama's statement is a profound reality check. The planet does not need more successful people. The planet desperately needs more peacemakers, healers, restorers, storytellers, and lovers of all kinds. This gives crucial, maybe uncomfortable context for where we should direct our mastery, how we might redefine successful. It suggests our usual definitions, individual achievement, competitive advantage, accumulating wealth or power, might be misdirecting talent away from there could create the most collective good.
So he's critiquing those standard metrics, individual competition, getting more for yourself, saying that's not what the world is desperate for right now.
Precisely. Those conventional metrics serve functions in economic systems, sure. But the Dalai Lama suggests they might not align with genuine fulfillment or, more importantly, the urgent needs of the planet and people. The qualities he names peacemaking, healing, restoring, storytelling, loving. They require mastery that's inherently relational, empathetic, service oriented. You can't develop them in isolation or just for self gain. They demand empathy, understanding suffering, compassion, commitment to others' well being as core parts of the expertise itself.
But this isn't saying ditch your career, right? It's more about how you bring this service-oriented mastery into what you already do, reorienting existing skills.
Exactly. It's not about abandoning careers. It's about integrating service-oriented mastery within your professional context. So an accountant could master explaining finances clearly to help small businesses thrive, becoming a restorer. An engineer could focus on sustainable solutions, becoming a healer for the environment. A manager could specialize in creating conditions where others achieve mastery, fostering love, and flourishing in their team. This approach sees professional competence as most valuable when directed towards healing, restoration, human flourishing, not just climbing the ladder for its own sake.
So for you listening,
Yeah.
how does seeing life as continuous education change how you view challenges, turning them from roadblocks into learning opportunities? And maybe more pointedly, where are you focusing your mastery efforts now? And where, according to these insights from McNally, Johnson, and the Dalai Lama, should they perhaps be directed for deeper meaning and greater collective benefit? Okay, let's bring all this amazing wisdom right back down to earth, to the practical steps, the absolute necessity of practice. And for this, we have insights from both Mahatma Gandhi and Aesop. Timeless stuff.
Gandhi's quote is just so direct. An ounce of practice is worth more than a ton of preaching. It cuts through all the intellectualizing, doesn't it? It prioritizes action over talk, doing over just discussing.
And Aesop echoes this, applying it even to our hopes and prayers. It is in vain to expect our prayers to be heard if we do not strive as well as pray. Both are basically saying, get on with it. You can wish, understand, strategize all you want, but unless you do the thing, apply that ounce of practice, it just doesn't happen.
Which makes you question a lot of modern education and development, right? We often focus so heavily on theory, on conceptual understanding, almost treating it as equal to actual capability. And theory is valuable. It gives guidance, context, a map. But it absolutely cannot replace the embodied learning that comes from repeated, deliberate practice in the real world. The mastery framework says theory becomes truly valuable when it informs and improves practice. Otherwise, it's just inert knowledge.
So it's not just reading the manual. It's reading it, trying to build the thing, failing, going back to the manual to figure out why, then trying again with that new understanding, that loop.
Exactly, that iterative cycle. Theory, practice, feedback, adjustment. It's often messy. It's about testing ideas against reality, seeing what actually works, and refining your approach. That's how practical wisdom develops the ability to apply general principles effectively in specific, unpredictable situations. It's what separates knowing about something from actually being able to do it masterfully.
And Gandhi's ounce of practice also points to the power of small, consistent actions, doesn't it? We often think we need huge leaps, massive changes.
Yes, this is crucial for long-term progress. Those small, consistent ounces of practice, done day after day, build more lasting value than occasional grand gestures or complex plans that, honestly, often fall apart. This fits perfectly with Mastery Development Daily, focused work on fundamentals, not just sporadic bursts of effort. The power of consistency is that it's sustainable. Big, scary goals often trigger resistance because they demand huge disruption. Small practices can be woven into existing routines, gradually shifting habits and skills without that big psychological pushback. It's the compound effect of just showing up.
So it's about doing the reps, consistently, even when it feels small. Because over time, it compounds into something significant, something transformative. Which brings us to maybe the most fascinating part of mastery as ultimate status.
Yeah.
Its paradoxical nature, how it's both simultaneously accessible to anyone yet achieved by relatively few people.
Understanding this paradox is key, both to seeing why mastery is so valuable and why it's surprisingly rare. On one hand, it's incredibly accessible. Unlike so much status in our world, it needs no special credentials, no inherited wealth, no permission slips to start. Anyone, regardless of their starting point, can begin developing expertise just by committing their time, attention, and persistence. In that sense, it's profoundly democratic. The path is open.
That's a really empowering thought. The path is open to anyone willing to walk it. But then the other side of the coin, it's practical exclusivity. If anyone can do it, why don't more people?
And that's the relatively few people part. Despite being theoretically open, mastery is practically exclusive because most people are simply unwilling to pay the real costs,
Hmm.
the often unglamorous costs. The things required sustained effort over long periods, pushing through frustration, humbly taking feedback, embracing failure as data. These demands are tough, rigorous enough that relatively few actually stick with the journey. The path is open, but it's steep and it's long.
So it's not that people can't do it necessarily, it's that they won't. They won't pay the price. Inconsistent effort, patience, maybe vulnerability.
Precisely. And this creates what you might call earned exclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
The master craftsperson, the master leader, the master thinker. They've achieved a kind of distinction that's both humble because it came from serving the craft, not chasing status, and yet deeply prestigious. It represents real capability that others recognize and value. It's a status you can't fake or buy. It has to be built painstakingly through that continuous, deliberate engagement with the work itself. So, for you listening, what ounce of practice can you commit to today, right now? Something that moves you towards mastery in an area you truly care about. And how do you sit with that paradox? That mastery is open to all, yet so few achieve it. What does that imply for your own journey? How might it motivate you to actually pay the real costs, the time, the effort, the patience that many others are unwilling to? So as we wrap up this deep dive, it feels incredibly clear, doesn't it? All these different sources, ancient philosophy, modern business, timeless wisdom, they all point towards the same powerful idea.
Yeah, they really converge. The most valuable, the most resilient human achievements, they can't just be bought or acquired externally. They have to be built internally through commitment, sustained effort, and often a real sense of service to something beyond just yourself.
It's amazing how they weave together. You have Derek Sivers giving us that core definition. Mastery is the ultimate status, the why.
Then Peter Drucker shows how these same principles, responsibility, competence, autonomy, can transform whole organizations, creating environments where excellence grows from the ground up.
And Marcus Aurelius, via Ryan Holiday, pulls back the curtain on our own psychology, why we build those complex Rube Goldberg machines instead of taking the direct path sometimes. It's a call for simplicity, directness, honesty about our real motives.
Then the Dalai Lama, McNally, Johnson's, they powerfully reorient our focus. What does the world actually need? The value of lifelong learning as an adventure, the critical importance of directing effort towards our irreplaceable roles. It really makes you question where true fulfillment and impact lie.
And finally, Gandhi and Aesop just nail it down to the practical. It all comes back to action, that ounce of practice. Not just hoping, planning, or understanding, but doing consistently, humbly.
When you pull it all together, it suggests this life approach that's both incredibly practical and deeply idealistic. It's fulfilling for the individual, but also beneficial for society. It demands patience, to build real skills over time, but also that focus on serving others and the courage to choose meaningful, competent work over just chasing impressive-looking achievements that might be empty.
And maybe the biggest takeaway is this. When you really approach life as that continuous education in service of mastery, the kind you earn, the kind no one can take away, the process itself becomes the reward, just as much as any outcome.
Yeah, the status isn't just something external you get at the end. It's something internal you become. It's not just the destination. It's the whole way you travel, making the entire journey worthwhile.
In a world that often seems to value appearance over substance, speed over depth, getting ahead individually over collective well-being,
The pursuit of true mastery feels like both personal wisdom and social responsibility. It offers a path to real security, meaningful contribution, lasting satisfaction that external stuff just can't provide or take away.
and that is why mastery truly represents the ultimate status. It's the only achievement that makes the achiever intrinsically more capable of creating real, lasting value for themselves and for others, no matter what's happening externally.
So the final thought for you listening is really a question. How will you choose to embody this ultimate status in your own daily life starting today?